Good evening, everyone. We'll call this regular meeting of the City Council to order. It is Tuesday, April 4th. Everybody please join, if you'd like, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Cumby.
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. We will move into public comment on non-agenda items. If any member of the public wishes to speak to the council this evening, go ahead and come forward or raise your hand if you are on Zoom. This, again, is on non-agenda items. Come on forward. And please give us your name for the record.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Chris McLover. I understand that I have 3 minutes to speak, so I'm going to do my best to maintain my time so that everybody else has a chance to speak as well. But I just want to forewarn you that I'm going to be at the next 20 meetings just so that all of my issues can be heard. Now, I'm a pilot. I have been for 15 years, and I've saved every penny since high school in order to achieve a lifelong goal of owning an airplane. Now, I was able to do that about 2 years ago, or a little over 2 years ago today. And it's amazing. Having an airplane made me visit my family. Commuting for work was so much more time efficient. It really made me able to do more things than I could have done otherwise. And I'd love to get into detail of was or have been able to, and believe me, we will over the next 20 meetings or so as I'm addressing these issues. But before me and others are some very serious and chronic issues that I need to address with you, the more pressing matters now. So under the new airport board and management, rules have been created, modified, and enforced at will without transparency or consideration for airport users or the public. And a few examples of these, and just a few, are stranding aircraft by refusing to sell fuel, preventing pilots from fueling their own aircraft, creating exorbitant landing and tie-down fees, increasing hangar rent fees over 250%, preventing pilots access to personal property and aircraft, coercion of businesses and citizens into unfair agreements, among many others. That's a serious list, okay? In attempt to enforce these rules, the airport management has acted against its regular users, business owners, pilots, myself, by pressing charges of trespassing, unlawful entry, threatening FBI investigation, and that's all against me, banning the use of public space and resources by attempting to prevent pilots from normal and safe use of the airport. This has resulted in multiple FAA investigations against pilots, also the airport management. It's resulted in litigation measures, continued threats of civil and liability lawsuits, and mass departure of pilots, aviation businesses, along with the revenue that they brought to the city. Now I want to bring 2 pressing points to your attention. I'll be going over what I just spoke about in the next 20 meetings, but the first most inconsequential item that I want to bring forward to you guys that's pressing is that all of the local and general aviation aircraft owners have left. 2 years ago, when I bought my aircraft, I had to fight to get it in the community hangar, and it houses 12 aircraft. Right now, it's mostly vacant. There's no aircraft, but there's a horde of pigeons in there now. Conveniently, the airport now charges $20 per wash to wash that bird crap off your airplane. With the increase of fees, management hostility, lack of maintenance, all of the airport-owned hangars are now empty. Okay, and I was just informed that the airport management intends to execute its first right of refusal clause to purchase a private-owned aircraft. Private-owned hangar I was interested in buying. So I don't really understand the logic here. If they can't fill or maintain the hangars that they have currently, why are they swooping in and buying hangars that I would like to buy and preserve my own aircraft. Anyway.
We will, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're past your 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I'll ask you just to wrap up really quickly.
Okay.
If you could.
The second most important point, the airport management has begun the process of publishing the rules they have already been enforcing. And I should note that although creating the rules and regulations document is allowed, it is not required by federal, state, or local agencies, and thus absolutely has no limits or oversight. And if passed as is, it gives the airport a tangible way to prevent citizens from their civil liberties. To give you guys context, I'm going to paraphrase the section 2.2.1 from this document. No person shall remain on any part of the airport in such a manner that his or her behavior or presence frustrates the staff. Okay, the authority has the right to trespass that individual temporarily, permanently, or suspend any use of the airport. And I'm sure that my presence here is frustrating you, so please don't ban me from this public forum. And I can go into more other documents that are required that they are not following as we go forward in these meetings. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you for taking time. And before you leave, because you're going to be here often, what is your last name one more time?
McLover.
McLover. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come to the City Council. Yeah. Any other members of the public wish to speak to any item this evening? Raise your hand if you're on Zoom or come forward. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public comment period, and I will recognize the Vice Mayor for considerations of changes or setting the agenda.
Okay. I move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor Cumby, second by Pierce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We will then, the agenda has been set, sorry, Council. We will then move into proclamations, public hearings, and presentations. And I'm going to read the first proclamation this evening, and then recognize the Vice Mayor to read the next. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges. And whereas the nation's communities are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs, and whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps senior participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century, to fighting the opioid epidemic, to responding to natural disasters, to supporting veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps senior participants serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to serve, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas the AmeriCorps shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities and National Association of Counties, Cities of Service, and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 4th, 2023. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Harrington, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the city of Laramie, do hereby proclaim April 4th, 2023 as National Service Recognition Day, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to the community. And Council, we have Jim Freed, Tyler Carroll, Josie Whitman, Crystal Ballard, and Thomas Furland with us this evening. I don't know which of you or all of you want to come forward. The more the merrier. Thank you all.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you, Mayor Harrington and members of the City Council. My name is Jim Fried. I'm the Program Director for the Wyoming Conservation Corps here in Laramie, and we just wanted to say thanks for your support and recognition for national service that happens in our community and in our state. And with us, we have Action Resources International, members from Feeding Laramie Valley, and the Wyoming Conservation Corps.
And we want to thank all of our volunteers for coming and joining us today. And we wanted to say that we're very happy and pleased to help provide support in this community for feeding people with food insecurities and helping out in places like Interfaith, Downtown Clinic, Foster Closet, and different places around the state of Wyoming. And so we just wanted to say thank you for helping recognize this tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if we could, we would love all of you to come forward for a photo. We're going to move some desks and come towards you.
Okay.
I can help.
Slide this over here real quick. It's on wheels. Okay. So we just want to come forward.
Sure, we'll hold it up and bunkers, you want to hold it?
Hold these in like you guys like
Right in
each
the
other.
There we go. Let's do it. Let's see. Andy, there we go. I'm standing. Let me move it. Smile. Oop, hold on. Okay, let's try. Thank you. Thank you all. Congratulations. Thank you.
You're going to take that with you.
There you go.
I can see everything. Congratulations. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you all. The work you do for our community and our state is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Council, I'm going to move on to the Vice Mayor, who has offered to read the next proclamation.
Okay. Whereas children are our future, no child should suffer abuse and neglect. And whereas victims of child abuse and neglect are known to be at higher risk for experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, low academic achievement, drug use, juvenile delinquency, teenage pregnancy, and adult criminality, every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment free from harmful effects of abuse and neglect. And whereas an estimated 1,000 children in Wyoming are victims of abuse and neglect each year, and whereas effective child abuse intervention and community prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among community members, social services, and law enforcement agencies, schools, churches, businesses, and civic organizations. And whereas each April, Child Advocacy Centers of Wyoming, the Children's Trust Fund Board, Prevent Child Abuse Wyoming, Wyoming Citizen Review Panel, the Wyoming Department of Family Services, the Wyoming Office of Attorney General, Division of Victim Services, the Wyoming GAL program, the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and other partners joined together in an effort to prevent abuse and neglect through outreach, education, and intervention. Now therefore be it resolved that I, on behalf of Brian Harrington, Mayor and President of the governing body of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of these child advocacy groups in the state of Wyoming, and to thank those who volunteer and work hard to prevent child abuse in our communities. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the City of Laramie on this 4th day of April 2023.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is Katrina Price here or on Zoom?
Mayor, I'm not seeing her either.
Okay. No problem at all. We will get this proclamation to her
All right.
as soon as we can. Yeah, Councilor Doherty.
It's a pretty shocking statistic, 1,000.
1,000, I thought that was
When there are
shocking too.
500,000 citizens, so 1 in 500 humans in Wyoming almost is being abused every year. So that's pretty sobering. I'm glad there are groups fighting it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. All right, we are going to move on, Council. We'll be sure that proclamation gets where it's going. We're going to move on to a presentation from Wyoming Community Gas. We have Natalie Flood with us on the Zoom. Natalie, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, can you guys see me?
So far, we just hear you.
Okay, let me try one of these.
There you are.
There we go. Is that better? Okay, I'm just ahead. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to join the call this evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but we do have the annual choice gas selection period that starts this Thursday. So I am stuck here at my desk for the next 3 weeks. And kind of just as a note, if there is anybody there today that needs to make their choice gas selection or has questions about, the program itself or price options or anything, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm more than happy to help. So Wyoming Community Gas is just one of 9 natural gas suppliers that participates in the annual Black Hills Choice program. Each year in April, the Choice program provides customers the opportunity to get a competitive price for their natural gas and a price option that best suits their need, instead of being limited to just the utility rate and having no choice. The City of Laramie itself is one of 24 member communities that makes up Wyoming Community Gas. And because of this, the city receives a distribution each year from Wyoming Community Gas, which is based on the total number of customers in the program that selected Wyoming Community Gas, and then also how many of those customers were in Laramie that chose us as their supplier. So last April, Wyoming Community Gas did have another super successful selection period with an additional 201 customers in Laramie choosing Wyoming Community Gas as their supplier. Even though the board decided that the total distribution that would be going to all of the member communities should be decreased this year by $5,000, the increase in customers in Laramie specifically brought your total distribution to $24,601.65, which is over $500 more than last year's, which is awesome. I was also doing a quick look, so I've been in this role for 10 years now, and I looked back 10 years ago how much I got to come to the city council and talk about giving back, and it was just under $6,000. So in 10 years, we've gone from under $6,000 to over $24,500, which I think is incredible for the last 10 years, and I hope to just continue this trend. I always say that I don't consider myself a salesperson, but what drives me is that the better job I do, the more money we're able to put back into amazing organizations and communities there in Wyoming. So since the City of Laramie has decided to split the total distribution between 3 great and worthwhile organizations, this year each one will receive a check from Wyoming Community Gas in the amount of $8,200.55. So at this time, I would like to invite a representative from each one of these organizations to address the council if they'd like.
Thank you, Natalie. We have Mr. Watanabe on Zoom, but you two gentlemen, go ahead and come on forward. It's great to see you both. And Josh, we're going to start in the room, and we will head to you next, just to be clear.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always exciting to be part of the distribution again, especially when the amount goes up a little bit. But this goes directly into our programs, and it's just so helpful, especially as the need continues to increase and as we try to address it. So it's, like I said, thanks again. We really do appreciate the work of Wyoming Community Gas, Natalie, and for you for selecting the Soup Kitchen and the other two agencies, again, to have a portion of this funding. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Gosar.
Thank you, Mayor Harrington and City Council and City staff and Wyoming Community Gas and Natalie. Thank you so much. Community is about collaboration, and for us, opportunity, community, and collaboration mean a lot. We get to work with each other, our friends, doing something we think is important, and this money helps us do that work. I can't thank you enough for the work that it allows, and for your investment in the health of the citizens of Albany County. Thank you. And it's also great to be standing with Ted and Josh. Anytime you're in that crew, you know you're in good company.
Absolutely. Mr. Watanabe, go ahead, and the floor is yours.
Well, I would just echo what Pete and Ted have said. This is an amazing program. We are incredibly grateful for the consideration, both from Wyoming Community Gas as well as the City of Laramie. These types of awards and grants and the funding allows us to continue to provide for the community here, and we couldn't do that without your support. As the need keeps going up, it becomes even more important, and it means even more to us to continue to receive this. So thank you.
Thank you. And Natalie, we will go back to you, and I'll just say, the work your organizations do is very important to our community. I think you all know that. But Natalie, from where we're sitting, the efforts you put into these organizations as well is very appreciated.
Thank you very much. Like I said, if I can do a better job at what I'm supposed to be doing, then we get to give more money back to these great folks. So we'll continue that trend here over the next 3 weeks, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, City Clerk, no public hearings this evening? Okay. And City Manager, any announcements?
Mayor, we do have one announcement from the Assistant City Manager.
Assistant City Manager Fieser, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just another chance for us to let you know that 2023 Laramie Community Cleanup Days are coming April 22nd through May 7th. Let's team up to clean up. Community cleanup for 2023 will allow groups or individuals to spread the cleanup over a period of 16 days from April 22nd through May 7th. If you're interested in organizing a group or need garbage bags or vests or anything that we may be able to provide, we ask you to contact the Laramie Planning Office at 721-5207 or email planning@cityoflaramie.org. And then as a follow-up to that, real quickly, and you'll hear about it in a couple weeks, though, the landfill voucher program kicks off on Monday, April 17th. So plan on that too. But if we all do our part and chip in, we can help get Laramie cleaned up ahead of the graduation and make it clean and ready for the summer.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Council, any disclosures on any items before us this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to the Vice Mayor.
Okay. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second. Motion by Cumby, second by Pierce. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The consent agenda has been approved. Councilor Gabriel, item 11.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to award the professional services agreement for the ArcGIS Enterprise implementation and administration to Argus Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $96,550 plus a contingency of $9,655, a total not to exceed $106,205 amend the water, wastewater, and general fund budgets accordingly, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by Somerville. City Engineer, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Honorable Mayor and members of council. GIS, or Geographic Information System, for those that don't know, is a software system that creates, manages, analyzes, and maps all types of data. GIS connects data to a map, integrating location data, meaning where things are, with all types of descriptive information, meaning what things are like there. This provides a foundation for mapping and analyze that is used in science and almost every industry. GIS helps users understand patterns, relationships, and geographic contexts. The benefits included improved communication and efficiency, as well as better management and decision-making. This software is used by hundreds of thousands of organizations and is extremely useful for municipal governments such as ours. It really becomes the backbone for organizations because of how useful it is, and as such, it will be deeply integrated in our new ERP software. In recent years, GIS has changed the way data is stored and distributed to its users. While this change is a great improvement in GIS and how it can be used, it also means that internal systems within organizations need to be upgraded to be able to use these updates. The agreement before you tonight is to set up ArcGIS Enterprise, which is the central system used by GIS to store and distribute data, and is one of these internal systems that is needed by the city for us to use our GIS to the full potential. ArcGIS, not to be confused with ArcGIS, will work with city staff to set up how the city's data is stored and distributed using the ArcGIS Enterprise. This system is crucial as the city continues to grow in our use of GIS, especially when it comes to our new ERP software. They will also assist us in the maintenance of the system for 1 year. In addition to setting up ArcGIS Enterprise, ArcGIS will work with some of our utility data to set up an augmented reality for the city to try out. And what that means is I'll be able to take my phone out in the field, look at a city street, and see where those utilities are underneath the city street by looking at the screen of my phone. So, you know, Public Works is excited to kind of try this system out and see kind of what potential it may have for the future in us. So staff does support the award of this agreement, and I can answer any questions you may have. And if you do get too technical, I have Kyle Jordan, one of our GIS staff, here to assist with that as well. So.
Thank you, City Engineer. I think you all might be over our head. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Japp, so the technology sounds very cool and very useful, but could you talk to us a little about the security that would be imposed so that I'm assuming Joe Citizen couldn't walk around with their phone and see where all of our infrastructure was, and if that's part of this software package?
Your Honorable Mayor, through you, yes, that is actually one of the very crucial parts of this software package is security. The GIS kind of sets up an online and an internal database, and really this is just a server, but security is going to be one huge component of this, and making sure that, yeah, that data is secure and protected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gabriel.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just impressed with the number of firms that responded to the RFQ. A lot of times we'll see maybe 2 or 3 in some of these other, if we have like a truck or whatever it might be, but we had 10. Could you just comment on that?
Your Honorable Mayor, through you, we were surprised as well. A lot of these corporations that came in, we don't have a lot of dealings with on a day-to-day basis. It's not like our engineering firms or local businesses. We followed our normal advertisement for an RFQ and just received numerous responses on this, and many great firms came in on this. So, I don't know really what drove it. Maybe it was just the type of project. There's a lot of companies that do specialize in this type of work, and it may have just driven, the demand of that. So,
thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Other questions? Can you talk a little bit, City Engineer, about other ways that we'll find efficiencies through this upgrade? You mentioned, that the sort of like using your phone to identify there's obvious efficiencies that you might find there, right? But are there other pieces that are notable? Because I understand that you all are quite tasked or pushed to the end of your abilities.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, one of the big things will be, with the new ERP software, a lot of the integrations the new ERP software will integrate GIS into a lot of those components of it. So we're going to see a lot of efficiencies of tracking through that. We use our GIS data, obviously, for a lot of our utility data, which is extremely beneficial. This new setting up the ArcGIS enterprise is going to make that function better, have better use for people out in the field to be able to use tablets better as they go out in the field to be able to respond to situations much quicker in that sense. Really, it's just kind of getting that backbone set up to start using GIS throughout the city, I think, is also going to be improving some of those efficiencies as well.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Okay, we will go to the public. Any members of the public wish to speak to this item? If you are on Zoom, go ahead and just raise your hand. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council, any comments before we go to the vote? Okay, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Gabriel. Cumbie.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That has been adopted. Item 12, Councilor O'Doherty.
I move to approve the license for the University of Wyoming to construct, use, and maintain an irrigation water line in the public right-of-way and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by O'Doherty, second by Gabriel. City Attorney, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This request for a license, comes in a larger context, as Council is well aware, of water and well issues with the University of Wyoming. So when they made this request, we had to make some judgments about the wisdom of various approaches and decided to discuss with the University of Wyoming granting a license as long as three things were addressed. Number one, that the water line, when I say license, it's the license to drill under 30th Street, because I'm pointing the wrong way, under 30th Street to bring that water past 30th Street onto campus facilities up here. So number one, we wanted to make sure that the water would only be for irrigation. That's how those wells are permitted by the state to UW, and we insisted that that be in the license. Number two, we wanted reporting on how much water was being fed into that pipeline. Number three, we had location and engineering / public works concerns about construction, what could be disturbed, what could not be disturbed. And those things were addressed in this license agreement, as you can see. The first thing is that they can only use this line for miscellaneous use for landscape watering, lawns, athletics fields, trees, shrubs, flowers, and the Jacoby Golf Course. Second, they have agreed to give us quarterly reports, yearly quarterly reports of the water that comes out of those wells out there into these lines, so that we're able to make plans if need be to deal with water that we need to deal with that has been brought into that part of the city. And then finally, they agreed to all of the requirements that come from our public works and engineering departments. They agreed, and we can go through those, but it is where they put it, how they construct it, how they test things before they construct it, non-disturbance of 30th Street or any other parts of our infrastructure out there, et cetera, et cetera. So I've negotiated with UW over many months about this, and so that's the license before you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Yeah, Councilor Shumway.
Does the city have an option to revoke?
No.
Any other questions?
And I'll, instead of being so blunt, I'll say more. No, it is conceivable that if litigation that is pending goes our way, there's going to have to be another conversation about the requirement for the university to get a permit to use their well water coming into the city. But that litigation has so far not gone our way. So when I bluntly said no, what I mean under this license agreement, under the current legal climate, no, we don't have an option to just revoke it at our, at our choice in a year or 2 years or 5 years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, Councilor Somerville.
Thank you. City Attorney, is there, I don't remember reading anything in the agreement, but if they or their contractors do a poor job or there is damage under 30th Street, are they liable to repair and maintain that throughout the years if their water line causes damage?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to any members of the public that wish to speak to this item. Raise your hands. You will have 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing none, Council, back to you all for comments before the vote. Okay. Seeing none, I will just say that I think there is a pervasive opinion that the city is not willing to work through things. And I will say this, as much as it may be frustrating to me personally, we are at the table in good faith. And so with that, Council, City Clerk, call the roll.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will move on to item 13. Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that City Council approve the memorandum of understanding between Neutron Holdings, Inc., doing business as Lime, and the City of Laramie for the provisions of a dockless e-scooter services, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Shumway, second by Somerville. Assistant City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thanks for hearing this item tonight. We have been approached by Neutron Holdings, which is doing business as Limes, for the provision of dockless e-scooters within the City of Laramie right-of-way. This is very similar to Bird scooters that we already have an MOU with. The MOU that was crafted with Lime is the same as that MOU that we do have with Bird. Robert Gardner, the director of, I got to get this right, expansion for Neutron Holdings, is here tonight and has a short presentation to provide you guys. So I'd turn it over to Robert Gardner at this point.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Welcome, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope everyone can hear me, and that you have does everyone have the presentation in front of them, or would you like me to, there we go. Perfect. So thank you so much for having me. We are joined here tonight by both Cody Noblin and David Sedbrook from our operations and government partnerships team, respectfully. I just appreciate your time and having us on the docket tonight. I especially want to thank Mr. Fieser for walking us through the process and really just ensuring that Lime knows how the city process works moving forward. My name is Robert Gardner. I manage our expansion portfolio in North and South America, and I do apologize for not being able to be there tonight, but I look forward to meeting you all in person at some time in the future. Just before we start, I'll just go into a little bit about Lime for folks that don't know. We are a U.S.-based, profitable, and growing micromobility company with operations in over 200 cities worldwide. We're currently in the application process, not just for Laramie, but Cheyenne as well, and look forward to working through that process. And, ultimately, we really hope that we can show, not tell. Can show the city our commitment to operational excellence and the tightness of how we work. If you go to the next slide, we can go through the agenda. I'll try and be as brief as possible, make sure there are time for questions, et cetera, but we'll walk through the vehicle that we're intending to bring, sort of how we work with data, how the process works overall, and how the city can sort of, partner to change that if we have to, and some of the key features that we hope to bring to the city. So this is our Gen 3.0 vehicle. This has been in over 100 cities in North America. Lime is a purpose-built vehicle. We build our own vehicles, and this is the vehicle that we intend to bring. You can see here that we have both it is very similar to some of the other scooters out there, but it's a little different in the sense that we have a lower baseboard, dual braking system. You can see the mountain bike suspension, which is key for, if there are any potholes or any rocks in the road, anything like that. We do have a number of different features in the vehicle, not just the reflectors and lights, but ultimately when you look at this vehicle in the car headlights, for instance, the whole thing is basically reflective to make sure that we've built as many safety features into the vehicle as humanly possible. What you can't see here is some of the items are wrapped in a substance that enables them not to break if they happen to tip over. So it really extends the life of the vehicle. And we would work to warehouse locally so that all of the repairs or charging, et cetera, that we end up doing will be locally done by our local partner. Next slide, please. So the way we tend to think about the service territory is through the partnership. We start with really the entire city jurisdiction, and then we start to look at what areas we want to take off limits, whether that's a no operation zone, whether that is a slow ride zone, whether that is a mandatory parking zone, or any of the other geofencing that we want to do. So while it looks like a pretty blank slate right now, what we'd ideally want to do is to work with the city to go into some of those sensitive areas, really have a relationship so that we can know where we need to, for instance, slow the vehicles down or create a little more just a little more process in the vehicles and how the vehicles are deployed to make sure that everything is running smooth and that we can avoid as much as possible any of the issues that the city might have had previously. So what we do, in addition to providing sort of raw data, if it's wanted, we do tend to protect personally identifiable information, of course, is we have the option to provide really tiered layers of quality of data, whether it is a public or private data feed. Sometimes that's called an API, or if that's just in the the dashboard format where you can look, we can sort of get different users from the city side to look at the number of trips, to look at the number of riders, unique riders, the total distance, average distance of those rides. And you can really track that ridership, see what it looks like over the season. And it really is an aid in whether that's knowing what the program might look like in the future, knowing how many vehicles that we might want to put in the future, or if we want to go up or down, but additionally really looking at the impact, number of car trips avoided, et cetera. I think this is something I really want to focus on just from the conversations that I've had previously. Ultimately, when we look at some of our reporting features, we try and look at it as a big funnel that goes to the local team. Ultimately, we want to get whatever the reporting issue is, whether it's, say, an errant vehicle, or whether it's excellent operations. We've had that quite a bit, people reporting on our line patrol or our strong operations team. We want to get that to the local team. So we start out with the opportunity to report something in the app, which is the largest funnel effectively that we have. Anything from an errant vehicle to parking to any issue that you might find is easily reportable in the app. Additionally, we have an international phone number, which is also available in text. It's available, I believe, in 33 languages, but that is updated every so often as we go into different cities. So that's a slightly smaller funnel that enables folks to basically create a ticket that goes right to our local team. Through our website and our safety portal, anyone can make a report, or we have our general international email line. We have social media, though I have to tell you that folks have found my Twitter handle in the past on social media, and I don't love getting tagged whenever somebody finds a Lime vehicle and they want to say something about it. It's not the best for my mentions. And then I think, to skip over the law enforcement portal, what we have is, and we can create a help-laramie@li.me, which is a city-specific email address, which is something that can be on the city website. It's something that we can work with our partners on. It can really be the direct line to the individual that can make the change as fast as humanly possible on the operations side. And that's going to be, that's the sort of small tip of the funnel. Additionally, we have a law enforcement portal, something that's not used very frequently, gladfully. But should the situation arise, we're able to work and communicate with law enforcement. So ultimately, I want to look at the begin trip user flow for scooters. These are mandatory when you first start riding. The first three, they're really going to tell you, you have to be 18 to ride, one rider per scooter, going through, your parking requirements, all of the pedestrian interactions. But as we move to the far right, this is our opportunity when you start a ride to have exactly the rules and regulations that we want to make sure that it's really precise to the jurisdiction. And this is where we'd want to work with you to get, let's just say, the top 7 or 8 different requirements that we want to have directly in front of everyone at the beginning of each of our rides. Additionally, with parking features, we've heard that parking can be an issue. Lime is able to create a couple of digital, we call it virtual opportunities, but also we're able to create physical opportunities here to really control parking. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. So Lime can create designated parking spots, which we call preferred parking zones. That's something we can provide, 50 cents back on a ride or something like that if we want to do that. But we can really work to get people to go into those, incentivize people to get into those corrals. We can indicate those areas that we have a no parking zone. So you can see on the far right, for instance, on your phone screen, you're going to see basically a big red box that says don't park there, and you're not going to be able to end your ride. That's something that we can create and we can have in zones. We can schedule that in the future for large events. And those are things, these type of geofencing things, we can generally have up within 24 hours. So if we need to change it or shift it, we can get that done fairly quickly. Additionally, on the vehicles, in the middle, on the vehicles themselves, we can have hang tags. So these are physical tags on the vehicles themselves, which can tell you where to park. It can tell you the rules of the road and how to really be a conscientious user. Just to walk through some of our other features that we do, and ultimately this all comes down to the partnership and to working with you to really create Lime as part of the transportation network. We have a Lime Hero program in which we ultimately want to work with those individuals that and those groups that have whether they're struggling, low-income individuals or providing low-income community services. We want to partner with those groups to offer our low-income community plan, which is 70% off all of our rides. And we want to make sure that individuals that do ride at a full price have the ability to round up their ride to donate directly to that Lime Hero. So that's something we would want to work with the city on, finding the right recipient for that program, making sure that we're deploying and making sure that we're signing individuals up for our low-income plan. Additionally, we do have that low-income plan, which is something that really the efficacy of that program is really about the quality of the partnership with the city. So, we want to get individuals enrolled in our low-income plan, our cash payment plan. We want to make sure that individuals that are receiving any federal or state benefits have the opportunity to ride a Lime, just like anybody that might not be receiving those benefits. So we can partner with the city on that. We can auto-enroll individuals who qualify for that. That's something that works and has worked really well in other jurisdictions, and something I think we could absolutely bring to Laramie. We talked a little bit about it, but I think something that we really want to drill down on is dedicated parking zones. We want to make sure folks have helmets, so we want to do helmet giveaways. You can see a picture here. This is from Florida, I believe, from Orlando, where we did what we call our First Ride Academy. That's something where we can pop up a tent. We can get folks to do that first ride, so they can go with a trained someone like Cody, who's on a call from our operations team, someone like myself who's ridden a Lime a million times. We can get members of the public on that first ride, get them comfortable on the vehicle, introduce them to the vehicle in a way that's going to, just really be that first touch or first blush of, this is how to be a conscientious rider, this is how to be a conscientious parker, et cetera. And we can do those in partnership with the city. We can do them at farmers markets. There's all kinds of different opportunities to do that. And then we talked a little bit about the law enforcement portal, but one of the things we really like to do is, and I think is smart to do, is before any deployment, we want to go talk to folks at EMS, we want to talk to folks in the police department, and we want to make sure that they have a full understanding of the capabilities of our vehicle. They have points of contact on our team. Should any situation arise, they can get to us via text message almost. We really want to create that collaborative relationship, and that extends to needs of deployment. So, we're able to flex our fleet, is what we call it. We're able to go up or down, sort of within reason, of course, really to meet the demand. If there's, an event and, we're going to need, say 300 or 400 vehicles, we're able to meet that demand and then sort of flex down to meet the normal daily requirements. And that's it. That's the overview. I'm certainly here to answer any questions, or if there's any concerns, very happy to do it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Council, any questions? Councilor O'Doherty and then Councilor Gabriel.
I appreciate that you have the phone number right on the scooter, because that's been one of the issues for people that don't have the app because they don't ride a scooter. I would like them to have a number to call. So I appreciate that. And do you already have somebody contracted in Laramie, or is this aspirational? Because I thought the other scooter folks were having a hard time hiring.
So we are sort of blessed in the sense that we do have operations in Denver. We have a very large warehouse and very large team. Our network is pretty large, so I feel fairly confident that my colleague here, Cody, and we can follow up with the exact individual that we are thinking about, will be able to contract an individual.
Thank you. Councilor Gabriel.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Robert, I was curious. I saw a bike and a scooter. Is it both or just the scooter?
Well, it's a good question. I think we'd want to start with scooters, and then I think we should revisit. A bike might be appropriate moving forward. Right now, and I think just to be candid, there's been a bit of a bike shortage still coming off of the supply chain concerns post-COVID. It's just starting to return back to normal, and we're backfilling some of those demands. But I would very happily revisit that. I think post-deployment, it might be right.
And then can you just address, if you would, what happens when the weather changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to that relationship, if there is let's just say during the normal operational months, if there's an extreme weather event, we shut the vehicles down, or we can collect them should it be a sort of longer extreme weather event. However, we're gonna pull our fleet in the winter when there's going to be, whether it's snow or just really inclement weather. That's something that is in certain months a little bit touch and go, depending upon the weather. But we will end up pulling for several months during the year, and then making a call in coordination with city staff to make sure that it's the right time to redeploy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, certainly one of the conversations that's popped up that's been kind of requested of us from the UW student population here is better access to the scooters, especially for nighttime transportation. I guess my question is, does your company work with right now any universities or colleges in other states where they might have a framework to potentially have those conversations with UW?
We do indeed. I could go down a fairly long list of both large, small, and medium universities. We would absolutely love to work out a contract with the university, and would welcome any contacts you have there, because we would love to create not just deployment zones, but again, go back to university-specific safety programming. It's even to have that as part of the onboarding process for incoming freshmen. We've done that at different universities to make sure that whether it's a promo for lower cost rides, or whether it's safety events, or even the mascot riding a vehicle, we've done that kind of stuff in the past. We want to make sure that everyone, again, is a conscientious rider and understands exactly what the rules of the road are.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Cumby.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that. And I just have a couple questions, or would like for you to address operations. And I think there was one question about, would you have a designated manager that you hire to do that? Secondly, your plan for housing scooters when they're not in use, that you would adhere to proper zoning uses and not house in garages and residential areas and things like that. Have you all proceeded to begin to develop your operations and how you see that?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. Operations is something that we really pride ourselves on. It's really, I think, a key differentiator for us. We will have, to answer your question, we will have a local warehouse space in Laramie with a team of employees. All repairs of the vehicle will be conducted in-house. I think, to get to your question, as opposed to sort of the more sort of backyard, which is what I've heard, we will really have several different individuals in that team. We are negotiating a warehouse lease now, and we will have effectively, if you want to think of it as layers of redundancy built in. So we will have your hyperlocal points of contact that will be in town effectively, and then you will have a salaried operations manager that will sit over the state of Wyoming, and then you will have regional leads, et cetera. And all of those individuals and their expertise will be available to the city, especially as we design new programs, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Assistant City Manager Fees.
Honorable Mayor, if I could verify, the Planning Division has been contacted by representatives of Lime on appropriate locations to operate their warehousing. So that communication has happened.
Thank you.
One other question.
Sure, Vice Mayor.
One other question. The time of operation of availability of the scooters, is it a certain time throughout the day and they're picked up at 11 or something like that? Or are they available 24/7, or what is it?
Is that to me? Apologies. 24/7 is absolutely the best route for that. Like I said, if there are extreme circumstances or problems, we're happy to adhere to, curfews or that kind of thing. I have to go back to the regulations to make sure that I didn't misspeak, so I apologize if I did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Councilor Richardson.
I have a question for Todd, if that's doable. Can you share a little bit more about what's happening then with the bird contract as well? Are these going to be simultaneous contracts?
Honorable Mayor, through you, the intent with these would be simultaneous contracts. The bird contract, after a few years and a little bit of work with them, getting them into properly zoned operation and getting some of the things dealt with, this last year, council in the change of the MOU was ongoing and not to be reviewed every year. This one with bird is to be reviewed in December 31st, 2023, and if it's going good, I would assume that we would look to extend this to be an ongoing MOU also. So they, in my mind, they would be ongoing together. I believe, I'm not in the scooter business, but I believe the market shows that there's value in being in our market and probably value for 2 scooters to be in this market. So I would assume that they would both be successful.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Newman.
Todd, my question's for you as well, or city staff, I guess. Do we know how many complaints we've had on the other companies' scooters around town being parked in people's yards or anything like that? Do we have an idea of that?
Honorable Mayor, through you, I didn't keep track of it. My office takes most of the complaints, I would say, as well as some of the council members, but, across the 3 years, 75 to 100 complaints really is what I probably could garner through across the entire 3 years, 25 a year. I know council has heard some other complaints, but directly into my office and through the city's notify me or the request tracker, very few complaints. And then I quite honestly am the worst one to ask about it because I just don't see things. I must be oblivious in the world. I don't see the scooters. I'm probably the worst one to ask on that.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Councilor Doherty.
I just wanted to also point out for the other counselors, in case you missed it, and I appreciate the cash payment option because, I know plenty of people that don't have smartphones, and it would be nice to be able to get to work, have a way to get to work on a scooter. So thank you for having that option and to help people in low-income communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor.
Absolutely. Just to add to that one point, we also have a text to unlock feature for those individuals without data, and we can supply graphics on how to enroll in those programs to the city, no problem.
That's appreciated. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I just want to make a comment that I do think there would be utilization of the e-bicycles and that those might better accommodate a little bit older resident of our community and would be something we could use on the bike path and things like that. So I'm happy to see that that's a potential option. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. Robert, just a couple of quick questions. You may have covered this, but I don't know the answers right now. First question is this. How, with so many under 18 youth not only having smartphones but credit cards, how do you ensure that we're not having 10 and 12-year-olds riding these scooters around our city?
It's a great question, and it's something that our fraud detection department takes very seriously. First and foremost, as I pointed out in the presentation, when you go through the term, not only the terms and conditions, but the begin user screen, the user flow screen, it informs you of your responsibilities under the contract. So if you are under the age of 18 and our fraud department or visually our local team witness an individual riding, not only are they kicked off the platform, but as you may imagine, they're pretty slick at trying to get back on. Our fraud detection department is very good at ensuring that all of the email variants and all of those type of things that people use to get back on, that they are removed or blocked from our system. It's something we take very seriously. Additionally, I think going back, there are some compromises we have to make, specifically with prepaid cards and other payment options like PayPal, for instance, that are available. So one of the things we do is we're consistently going to our users and asking them to confirm and really looking if there's any changes in the way that they're riding, or if there are any we'll call it reckless riding, so that we can really get them off our system. And to that end, even those individuals that are above the age of 18, we have what's called a progressive discipline policy. And for those individuals that are acting inappropriately, it's a 3-strike system. So it's warning, second warning, third strike, you're out, in order to get them off our system. So we would rather remove bad actors from our system than have them on for any sort of revenue-based reason. It's just really not worth it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. And one more question. If a person does not properly park the e-scooter, you indicated that the meter keeps running. How long does it keep running?
It's a good question. In theory, in perpetuity, but in reality, we tend to cap it at $25. That can change, but in reality, it's not. If you go past that point, it's not really deterrent. It is purely punitive, and oftentimes, one of the things we want to avoid is, for instance, overdrafting someone's account or something like that. Generally what we see, and we're monitoring the fleet pretty consistently, is if there's an inappropriately parked vehicle, or if somebody is consistently, so basically more than once or twice, parking inappropriately, we're going to review that account. 1, and 2, we're going to make sure that our local staff is checking what is that last ride, making sure that we're looking across our various users to try and identify those bad actors and get them out of the system.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions before we go to the public? Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. Robert, I might have missed this, but I was curious about when I saw that map. Originally, it looked like you were all the way out to the Laramie Regional Airport, all parts of West Laramie. Can you talk a little bit about the scope again of the availability of the scooters?
Yeah, so it obviously won't include the airport. Perhaps poorly, the point I was trying to show is, we start off with a large area to make sure that we're getting all parts of the city, and then we want to partner with you. We want to partner with the public, city staff, to really identify those areas that are sort of, obviously out of bounds, so no operation zones. We want to identify those areas that are, for instance, no parking zones or solid deployment zones. And we want to identify those areas, for instance, that may, call them sort of lower income areas that we want to, make sure that we're deploying in, so that, and potentially enrolling individuals in our low income customer accounts. We really want to look at the entire jurisdiction and then start sort of, removing those no-go zones and making sure that we're serving as much of the public as possible, and not just, necessarily the visitors to the town.
Thank you.
Assistant City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, in response to that question, we haven't had that discussion about the geofencing and the limiting the university's position on scooters and the lower speed zones or no operation on the green belts and the different pieces that we go through. One of my intents is always to ensure that we have a good distribution from West Laramie to West Side to Laramie. And I think that's important. And I'll relay the story again. Last year, It was in September, and it was cold and windy, and there was a young lady riding the scooter all the way from West Laramie through West Side, clear up to the Safeway, and I'm assuming it was to get groceries, and then probably riding home. And that showed me, just that one instance that day showed me that that's probably the value of this micromobility. She may not have had another form of transportation, but that was her transportation that day to be able to get groceries, and was real important to me. So we haven't had those discussions, waiting to see if council was even interested in entertaining the second provision of scooter organization in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Fieser.
Cool.
Zoom.
You must have lost internet, Mayor.
It was my electrifying comments.
It was. It was.
Mayor, if we could.
We will just give this a minute.
Yeah.
Everybody, let's just take a maybe a 10-minute break. We'll come back and continue that if Zoom is on. If not, we will figure out what to do from there. 7:50. Thank you. Ready to get another. go ahead and hop back on. Councilor Somerville will join us when she's ready. Mr. Gardner, sorry about that. Our Zoom crashed, so we just went ahead and recessed until it returned. I don't rightly know where we left that conversation when Zoom crashed.
I do have another question.
Well, then we're going to you, Councilor Richardson. Thank you.
The 18-year-old age requirement, is that liability stuff on your end, or are there other places? I'm just thinking about, is there an opportunity to like put a governor on that and allow younger people to access that transportation who may need it as well? Just curious.
It's a great question, and not one I've actually heard before. I don't think that's something that we could rightly do certainly in the next year. I think it's something we could certainly bring back to the team. But I do think the liability associated with someone under 18, whether or not they have the capacity to enter into a contract, for instance, is probably a barrier to that type of program. But, again, I would have to check with the attorneys,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any council?
Honorable Mayor, if I could
go ahead.
expand on Councilor Richardson's question related to that, Robert. I think the question to me, and I've had this same question, is when you have visitors to this community where it's a mother and a father and maybe a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old child, and they want to explore Laramie via the scooter, right, is kind of what you're talking about. And maybe if you guys would look into that and some provision, it could add to a tourism.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Council, any other questions before we go to the public? Okay. Any members of the public wishing to speak to the council on this item, go ahead and raise your hand if you're on Zoom, and you will be recognized, led into the room, and have 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council, any comments here at the end? Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville. Sorry. Absent. Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item passes. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Item 14, Councilor Newman.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the introduction and first reading of original ordinance number 2057, amending Laramie Municipal Code Chapter 2.56 relating to purchasing.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by O'Doherty. Director Webb, welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Senate File 164 was introduced and approved through the 2023 legislative session. That action amended Wyoming State Statute 15.1.113, which relates to contracts for public improvements. That statute is the reason I'm here with you all the time. The law provides requirements for us to follow when we enter into contracts for public improvements. The state statute also requires that every contract be executed by the mayor. On the cover sheet, I outlined all the changes to state statute 15.1.113, but the first bullet point on there is really what relates to Laramie Municipal Code 2.56. The Enrolled Act increased the bid threshold for which we're required to bid public improvement projects from $35,000 to $75,000. The act went into place April 1st, actually. They fast-tracked it, I think, trying to get ahead of the construction season and because all the inflation increases. Laramie Municipal Code 2.56 still states $35,000. So I believe that the change in the ordinance that we're recommending and aligning it with state statute will really expedite work on some of these smaller projects that we have out there and and hopefully save some costs. If on a project right now, if we've got a $40,000 project, changing out a couple manholes or something, that bid process is a couple of months to go through. A lot of work on the contractor, a lot of extra work on staff. The way the state statute is worded now is if it's under $75,000, we can go get quotes. I can get that work going sometimes in a week, right? So really expediting some of those smaller projects. If you want to look at it was in your packet, what we're looking at for the changes within Ordinance 2.56. You'll see in there multiple times where we put that the purchasing agent, which is the city manager, will also can have a designee, and she designates those designees through the administrative purchasing policy. We changed that dollar threshold from $35,000 and we just put in state statute thresholds, okay? So instead of actually plugging in that $75,000, we thought, well, gosh, the legislature could go and change that next year. And they could change it every year. And so that way we don't have to come back to council every year with the 3 readings and the ordinance change. Also, we have a little change on how we maintain a vendors list. Currently, the purchasing agent, the city manager, is required to maintain a purchasing list, update that every year. I think she works with the city clerk on that. I think it's pretty burdensome, but the change is really to reflect us moving into the ERP software. That vendor list will be maintained in the ERP software. The vendors will go in on the portal and put in all their vendor stuff. They can put in what commodities they use. So we could actually run a report through the system, pull out a vendor list based on the commodity or the work we're looking for. And then really the last change is in emergency authorization and duties. We just cleaned that up a little bit for how it really works. So currently it says that we'll prepare a full written report of circumstances of the emergency to the city council by its first regularly scheduled council meeting. That timing isn't always able to happen. So we basically changed that to within a reasonable time following the emergency. And so what would happen is we would come back with a report of the expenditures that were over that threshold in a council item for your acknowledgement. And I think that's about it. Some of the other things in statute relate to the purchase of vehicles. So if the vehicle's under $100,000, the bidder won't be required to bond anymore. We think that's really going to help get us some extra bids on some of the pickup trucks and things like that. Their profit margins on those are pretty small, and so they really don't like putting up those bonds when they bid for that. So we think that's going to help there. That doesn't necessarily relate to this municipal code. That'll be part of the purchasing policy that we follow. So as far as the amendments we're recommending to Laramie Municipal Code 2.56, I'll be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Director Webb. Council, any questions on first reading? Okay, seeing none, we will open the floor to members of the public who wish to speak to the council on this item. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and raise your hand. We will admit you into the room or come forward to the podium. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Council, any comments before the vote? Councilor Doherty.
I just want to thank staff for looking this over and fixing it and helping to expedite. We had a very short repair season, so I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any others? Okay. City Clerk, go ahead and call the roll. Thank you.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item is passed on first reading. Item 15, Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 2058 on introduction and first reading, amending Laramie Municipal Code, section 9.16, regulating handbills upon private property when nuisance declared.
Second.
Motion by Somerville, second by Gabriel. City Manager.
Good evening, Council. What's before you tonight I think is fairly simple. The city's handbill section of our ordinance has been in place for many, many years and has been unchanged for all of those years. What this small change is intended to do is to allow for handbills, which really are flyers or brochures that people might place on, a power pole or a telephone pole, or want to slide under somebody's windshield wiper on their car. Right now, it is prohibited for folks to do that in the community, and it would continue to be largely prohibited if you adopt this change. However, what the change would allow is for the city, through the city manager or her designee, to authorize in select circumstances the use of handbills, flyers, or some kind of posters for purposes of public education or public information. And I'll give you an example of where this comes from. So we've talked for years with downtown folks about downtown parking enforcement and downtown parking education. Where to park, where not to park. If I have 4 hours, where do I park? If I have all day, where do I park? If I only need to be there for an hour, where do I park? We've been stymied by the handbill ordinance, which doesn't allow us to place anything on somebody's vehicle, right? So something maybe under their windshield. The downtown Main Street director and I had sort of come up with this notion that we could maybe partner with Main Street to put those cling static decals like on a windshield where people are parked like in the all-day parking, to say thank you for parking in the all-day parking and thank you for using it, and here's a QR code, scan it, and you can go get some more information about where to park downtown. I thought that would be adequate because the majority of the handbill section deals with windblown trash, right? It makes sense in Laramie. We don't like handbills and flyers because they become ultimately litter. And I thought we could bypass the ordinance with this window cling thing. And then we find this section F that says that you cannot place any materials on a vehicle at all, basically, period. So what this change would do would be to allow us to partner with folks for public education, that parking example being just one example. Who knows what folks will come up with long-term. But those applications of handbills or flyers to, say, under someone's windshield or under their windshield wiper would have to be approved by the city manager and have to be done for the purposes of public education. Any other questions?
Council, any questions? Councilor Somerville and then Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Mayor. The city manager. So I think the intent is good, but I know that from a personal perspective, when I go up to a certain large store here and I come out and there's things on my windshield that aren't supposed to be there, that just annoys me to death. So I don't know that the public would perceive as us putting stuff on people's windshields is a good idea, even if it's for education. I feel like maybe we're intruding on private property as a vehicle. I understand it, certainly we can do it with citations. I understand doing it for like warnings, like, hey, you're in a downtown parking area you shouldn't be in, please move your car or something like that. But I don't know that I'm convinced that the education piece is a good idea. I think we're going to get more negative feedback from the public about stuff being on their vehicles, whether it's cling decals or flyers or whatever. But I think I understand the intent. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. It's really hard to do public education right now, incredibly hard, so I understand the intent. But I would have serious concerns that the public would be okay with that.
Right.
Good, City
If I
Manager.
could respond to that. What I should probably emphasize is this is not something where first of all, when you come out of that large shopping establishment on the east side of town and someone's put something under your windshield, that remains illegal. So private businesses now and with this change would not be allowed, or people soliciting or whatever, right? That would still be prohibited. But if they came and worked with the city, and I imagine this being, like I said, some kind of partnership like with Main Street, if it was for public purposes and public information, then in limited circumstances, we would allow it. And so I want to emphasize limited circumstances. For the purpose of windblown trash and all those reasons, we know that, maybe this isn't the best way to go. But what I like about this and the notion that we were trying to pursue, like with downtown, is right now our ordinance says you can't put anything on a vehicle unless a police officer gives you a ticket or a warning. And what the change I'm suggesting to you would allow for us to do incentive-based public education / enforcement. So this little cling decal comes with a downtown gift certificate to say thank you for parking all day downtown in the right parking lot and not in front of somebody's business in violation of the 2-hour. So that's the concept we have in mind here. And I hear you, Councilor Somerville. I'm sure some people would find that objectionable, but I hope that you would trust staff to use this authority very judiciously and in a way that it's intended to be. The intent is not to blanket the town with advertisements for heaven knows what.
Follow-up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess the follow-up to that is where do you envision this stopping? Like, what are the sideboards? So in the example you gave, I can imagine other business establishments in town would not be happy because businesses in downtown essentially were getting, I don't even know what to call it, a leg up, right? If they get a downtown gift certificate for following downtown parking lines, so that all can be used in downtown, so that's benefiting those businesses, but it's not benefiting anybody else, right? And so a large portion of our business community under that example wouldn't receive the same benefits. I could also see a situation where down the road, maybe it's deemed that it's necessary to do some education about the rec center. Same thing, the city is involved in an area where there are private competitors. Where I could almost, maybe I could see the idea of okay, we're gonna plow your street, or street sweepers are coming by, tomorrow, move your car, please. Like, that makes sense, and I don't know if my question makes sense, but where could, because this just gives broad authority for you to determine, where do you envision those sideboards?
Okay. Through you, Mayor, Councilor Somerville, one of the sideboards, first and foremost, is that we do not promote any individual business, any service. There's no promotion of a for-profit entity, first of all. So public education means public business. In the partnership that Trey and I have envisioned for downtown, we have a unique relationship with Laramie Main Street. They are a fee-for-service partner with the city, and the campaign that she and her team came up with would actually be dual-branded to have Main Street's logo on it and the city's logo. And again, it would be incentive-based. It'd be, hey, thank you for parking here, trying to reward proper use of the parking, and then the QR code to say, here, you can go, thank you for parking here, and Main Street, not the city. We don't go raise money, and we don't give out gift certificates. Main Street organization, under like a co-branded arrangement, at least in this example, would do that, and they would deal with their own constituency and their downtown business owners, and I guess I'll leave that to them. That's their business, and they do it better than we do. So in this case, in this example, it's just like a joint effort between us and Main Street. But the main sideboard is we're not promoting businesses. The city's not getting engaged in giving out money or creating an unfair competition landscape. Your example of maybe putting some kind of handbill on a vehicle to say, hey, it needs to be moved. We're going to snow remove tomorrow. One of the things we have not done very well over the last few years, I'll use the downtown again, is we've really laid off on some of our plowing. We do not plow according to the signs downtown because it's so onerous on my staff and also on the public, because if we go down and plow to the actual dictates of the ordinance, we have to end up towing vehicles in the morning. And so this would allow us to maybe put things on people's car to help create more awareness so people wouldn't be parking there, and then we would be able to plow without creating all this drama and towing people's vehicles every single day. Did I answer your question, Councilor?
I think you did. Yeah, maybe more later. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Shumway, and then to you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to, I don't see it here, but I'd like to have it to where we prohibit the public education and information on political campaigns, because I think, first of all, most of the people that are running for an office know how to use the system, and they could use it unfairly for somebody else. Plus, there would be thousands and thousands of handbills flooding the city. And so I know it's selective, but I would like to not give that as an option for people running for public office.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice Mayor.
I agree, Councilor. What I was going to ask, the decal, temporary decal, would you see that being used as a first warning, like a get out of jail card? That you give them a warning, you have parked over your time, over your 2 hours, please use this QR code to find areas where you can park for longer, as opposed to giving a ticket. And that would be part of the education. So I was just curious if you all had thought about using it that way.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Vice Mayor Cumby, we had not talked about using this in any punitive way at this point. The concept is incentive-based enforcement through incentives. But
if somebody didn't give me a parking ticket, that would incentivize me to maybe park more appropriately, but anyway.
What we were hoping is just rewarding parking in the right place at the right time for the right length of time, to encourage greater awareness, encourage people to adhere to the law. But your suggestion, though, to be direct to your point, with this slight change of this half a sentence to the ordinance, that would become possible. So, yeah. And if I could, Mayor, to the question and concern about political campaign materials, the city would never endorse the placement of any information that would violate the statutes, because we're spending money on that campaign, whether it's through a staff member placing that there, that's a public resource, their time and their salary, or the materials. So we would still have to follow all of the guidelines that we already follow by law, that we don't get engaged in political activity, that it is inappropriate to use public funds to promote a private business, all of those kinds of things would still apply.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Newman, and then Councilor Richardson, Councilor Gabriel, going down the line over there.
I don't know if I want to speak in favor of this or against this yet. I guess I have some questions before I make a judgment call. And a statement. One of my questions would be, nothing saying that they have to incentivize parking in the right spot, right? So if we make this agreement with Main Street and they have a QR code, nothing's in writing saying that they have to give me a $5 gift card for parking in the right spot, correct?
Through you, Mayor, Councilmember, that is correct. No, this is not a mandatory compulsory thing. All this does is add this language to the ordinance. It says, this section does not apply to law enforcement personnel issuing materials in the course of duty, to the U.S. mail, to placement of materials otherwise required by law, to materials left in an emergency, and we're just going to add, or to materials left by the city or its designee in the course of official duties and public information as authorized by the city manager. So we're just going to add that little phrase at the end to give us a little more latitude to use carrots instead of sticks.
Thank you, City Manager. Do you have a follow-up?
I have not a follow-up question, just a follow-up statement. I think this is a participation award per se, because I'm doing the right thing. You know, you're going to give me a $5 gift card to downtown. I think if you're not following the law, you're not following the law, and maybe you should get a ticket. Just kind of my opinion.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Richardson.
I have comments and not questions. Is it time for that, or should I wait?
Well, let's keep a little order to it and just go with questions first, and then we'll come back to comments, because we may have a longer discussion. Councilor Gabriel, question?
You bet.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. It was kind of glossed over a little bit when Councilor Somerville talked about it, but would you consider putting some kind of event coming up at the rec center, or these events coming up in the next few months for patrons at the rec center?
Mayor, through you, Councilor Gabriel, the way this is written, it would not exclude promotional materials of the city for public services, but I will share with you that isn't my vision for this at all. But the way the language is written, it would not exclude that. If I could just say one more thing, Mayor, maybe it's unclear. I probably shouldn't have offered the example of this idea that Trey and I have downtown because we're sort of sideboarding off into that. It's a bigger picture issue, but I want to be clear for you all and for the public, we're not going to stop ticketing. If you are not parked correctly, then Brian and the chief and the rest of his crew are going to come and give you a ticket. This was more intended to be able to create incentives for people who are doing the right thing, who are parked correctly, and just take a different approach. And the reason I thought that the council would appreciate this is I think it has validity and merit, right? But I've also been here a long time and through many councils, and we've talked for years and years about how to find ways, creative ways to use incentive-based enforcements instead of always being the heavy-handed government and sending Brian and his folks out with a ticket. Maybe we could reward good behavior. It doesn't mean we're going to stop ticketing bad behavior that breaks the law, but maybe taking this approach is kind of a kinder, friendlier way to conduct government, and maybe in the long run is more effective. So, but don't get me wrong, we're going to keep,
Thank you for that.
Keep ticketing.
Council, any other questions? Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, in the conversations that you've had, do you have any other cities or examples that are running this program right now?
Well, through you, Mayor, Councilor, to your direct question, no, I have no other examples in particular that are like what I'm offering as far as this idea that Trey and I brainstormed. But certainly lots of cities and jurisdictions use incentive-based enforcement. Good example, right? Like police officers, sometimes they pull you over, and police departments will have incentive campaigns where they go, here's your warning, and oh, by the way, have a great day. Here's, I don't know, a certificate for a Big Mac that McDonald's donated or something. So these kinds of campaigns aren't uncommon, and I think cities all across the country are really experimenting with how to make incentive-based enforcement more effective.
Well, and if I could just clarify, that information is good, but I was speaking specifically to putting stuff on people's vehicles, like handbills from cities that are going beyond what we've traditionally seen, a warning or move your car because we're going to plow, that kind of stuff. So venturing out of that realm, like either paper handbills or temporary vinyl stickers, or do you have any other city examples that are doing that?
No, but I would say handbill ordinances, and Bob may be able to weigh in, these are one of the oldest kind of ordinances that you usually see in cities, and there are a myriad. Some outlaw them completely, others say it's okay if it's for this purpose. It's just all over the board. I believe that our ordinance is really focused on avoiding litter. Like I said, this section that we're talking about deals specifically with vehicles. There's another section in there that deals with what you can leave on someone's property, their home. And so to Councilor Shumway's point, it does say you could leave political material and when you're campaigning on someone's door of their home. But vehicles are different. And public property, like telephone poles and things like that, are usually treated differently too. So that you could regulate it and, the site of City Hall doesn't turn into like a de facto disaster of handbills.
I appreciate it. I think I was just looking for if somebody has already done this, what problems or complaints or feedback that they have. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shumway.
Just one more point for clarification. The part that bothers me a bit here is where it says designee of the city. Now, that could be anyone. If we wanted to put just a flyer on everyone's windshield that talks about all the events for Jubilee Days, that may be approved. But there's so many things that different organizations may come and ask for permission to do. I worry that once we get beyond the city staff maintaining and managing this, it can become increase the clutter and the irritation of the public.
Yeah. Mayor, if I could,
Go ahead.
To that point, Councilor Shumway, through you, Mayor, that clause, I'm going to look to Bob a little bit here, because that clause was suggested out of the city attorney's office, not by Bob directly. But as far as I'm concerned, If that clause or its designee were to go away, where that came from, I think, was out of this notion and this seed idea that we have for a partnership with Main Street. But I'll be honest with you, I would feel very comfortable if this just said, or to materials left by the city in the course of official duties and public information as authorized by the city manager, period. As long as I'm your city manager, I'm probably never going to allow a designee agency like Main Street just to place stuff without the city also on it, if that makes sense. Like our logo, and we've endorsed it, and it's a public information campaign in the course of our official duties. So if that is uncomfortable for you, I can see why, and I would consider it kind of a friendly amendment. And I don't know if Bob has anything to say about it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Sure you are, but that's okay. Yeah, I assume it's there. Janine says I didn't write this, but I assume it's there so that if some good idea gets approved, the city manager doesn't have to assign city personnel to go all over town and do these things. That can be subcontracted informally, saying, yeah, it's a good idea, the city endorses it, it's for public information. Now your organization can go around downtown. I assume that's why it's there.
That makes sense, and Holly did suggest that. And so I just trust her opinion because she's in our code all the time, and she's thinking about all the potential eventualities, and I suspect Bob's exactly right that that's where that came from.
Thank you, City Manager. And I think to Councilor Shumway's point, I think there feels like an opening for a slippery slope, for sure, or a situation in which your office is responsible for saying no an awful lot. And that's never a spot that I think the council wants to put your office in. So worth considering maybe on second reading. Councilor Pierce.
I have a comment.
Hold on to it for just a second. Any other questions, council? Okay, we're going to go to the public and then back for comments. Any members of the public wish to speak to this item? All right, we are back. We're going to close the public comment. We're back. Councilor Richardson, then you, Councilor Pierce, because I made her wait earlier.
I just want to thank the city for thinking about things a little bit differently. I think all of us have talked about how we need to be better communicators about what's happening with the city, what things are, whether it's events, whether it's parking, whether it's XYZ. This to me, whether it needs to be a little bit refined or not, maybe another story, but the idea that we are thinking about approaching communications in a way that is more easily accessed by the public who say they never see what we're doing, don't know what's happening, right? So, I mean, when I think about this, even maybe there's a volunteer code that you have on your car, and it's a QR code, and they update it with the newest information with the city, and you just scan it and you can find out the things that are happening. This to me feels like a nice, fresh approach to things. In regards to the partnership with Main Street, again, how many of us have heard the complaints about parking downtown? If the city feels like this is a way, and again, maybe it's like thinking through, if we take out this designee piece of it, what does it look like then to be able to continue to do some of these things and have partnerships? But I think this feels like, and in talking with Trey about it, I sat on the Main Street meeting last night, and these incentives won't even necessarily be all the time. It's going to be kind of a random. It's like you parked here, and in her mind, it was even for those folks who work downtown and are parking right in those areas that most of us like instead of the longer term lots. So anyway, I just appreciate thinking about things differently and trying to address the problem that we always hear complaints about. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have anything to add to what Councilor Richardson said. I think it's absolutely worth a try, and I think, we'll see how it goes. I really like the idea. I like thinking outside the box, and I think this could really promote some education and, potentially could blow up, but let's just hope not. We can fix it if it does, right?
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I love the thinking outside the box, but I do have concerns about fairness at its base, and we do a lot with the example with Main Street, and I love Main Street. I agree with everything you said, Councilor Richards. I really do. But the city at its core has to be fair. So unless we're going to offer those types of partnerships to everybody else in the city, we really don't have any business offering that to one specific group. I also just, as a driver, I can envision this situation this summer, because I do park in the 2-hour lots when I take my kids down there. I'm driving my husband's giant F-350, and the city comes along and plops a decal on the windshield that sat there for 2 hours in 85-degree heat that I now, at 4'10", have to figure out how to scrape off my windshield, right, and get to. That just doesn't intrigue me in any way. I think that there are other, we should continue to think about other ways. And if this does move forward, I think this does need to be heavily amended. I think that it should be authorized by the city council, because we're the ones that need to bear that brunt of responsibility when they get mad about stuff that was authorized. And that leaves the decisions here in terms of what programs we're putting out there for authorization. And I agree with Councilor Shumway about being more specific. And maybe we make a list of what's okay, right? You can put a handbill or a decal on if they're going to go remove snow, or they can, we can come up with a list to get started as a small thing, I guess, and see where we go. So those are my thoughts. I love it. I just don't know that it's fair across the board, and I think it's going to be a nuisance from the city for the general public.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Councilor Richardson? Councilor Newman, is your hand up? Okay, Councilor Richardson for a second time.
I just, kind of to one of your points, Councilor Somerville, I think about when those partnerships can be chosen. I think about this one as being a positive one because it's addressing a city problem. And so if any other business or entity or nonprofit comes to us with a solution or potential solution to address a city problem that we frequently hear complaints about, I think maybe that's when we enter the discussion in those, to go down those roads. But I think thinking more deeply about this, as many of you have brought up about some of the language, is certainly worth our time.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Newman?
I love the outside of the box. I have a couple concerns. One of them would be, I do trust the city manager, but city manager, you might not be here for, ever, obviously. So then how do we go about, keeping it fair for, maybe the next city manager that comes in decides that, me as a business owner could start doing this. And now it's not fair anymore. So I kind of like Councilor Somerville was saying. The second part of it I'm having a really hard time with is, that's my vehicle. If I want something on my vehicle, I'll put it on there, right? Even if it is an incentive that I'm doing something right, or upcoming events or whatever it is, I'm having a real hard time with that part of it, right? If I'm following the rules that I need to be following, and now they're putting something on my vehicle, that's just something that I'm struggling with.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? City Manager, I think as we enter whether or not we move forward with this or not, if we do, I think one thing that would be helpful is some ability to receive feedback, because I do think two of the councilors have made good points. I don't personally like things on my vehicle, because something's stuck on my windshield, I get in my car, and then I'm like, oh, I have to get out and get it, right? So you've inconvenienced me for 10 seconds or something, but it feels more than 10 seconds, right? So I'm like, I compete in my mind about, like, I did something right, they acknowledged me, and that feels good, but I also had to get out of my car to deal with it. And so I can appreciate, I think this is a good idea. I mean, I think I certainly will intend to vote for this, but I think we need to know whether we have just irritated 80% of the people that we gave something to, right? So I think if we're going to do something with a landing page, if we're putting a QR code to redeem their gift certificate or whatever, whatever the things that I don't necessarily need to weigh in on, some place to click a button that says this was annoying would be helpful, and I think may give us. I would like to revisit that after we have a little bit of this data. because I don't know if, I just can't envision that like a city problem, to Councilor Richardson's point, like somebody could address the city issue that it is hard to make it through a gray winter, and we have this wonderful lights festival in the park, and then all of a sudden I'm receiving something on my car at Safeway inviting me to a single event, and that, you know, that would be the Winter Lights Festival as an example, and that's something that we all would feel good about, right? And so you could see how that might slide, or Jubilee Days, to Councilor Shumway's point. Where those lines are, I think, is just really hard to sort out. And I wouldn't envy your position in being the one to draw those lines continually, forever. So I guess, Council, if you no other comments, we'll go to the vote.
Mayor, could I?
Oh, yes, sorry, City Manager.
That's okay. I just wanted to address a couple of things. Bear in mind, this does say in the conduct of official city business, right? So I think promotional activities are certainly stretching it. To Councilmember Newman's point, it is absolutely normal and customary in code to delegate authorities to the city manager. And what I would offer is I hope that you trust my professionalism and judgment, and I know that when you hire someone to succeed me, they will have the same skills, knowledge, abilities, and training as I have, and they will also be judicious in allowing this. It's nobody's intent to blanket the town with paper. I offered the suggestion of the cling decals just because what we were brainstorming from Main Street was even if you just put something under someone's windshield that's a piece of paper, it might fly away, and we don't want it to become a litter issue. Right. This is in our nuisance code because handbills can become litter. So we're not necessarily committed to any type of material. We're trying to write a code that is malleable, can change over time, adapt to new technologies. I don't know, maybe they'll invent some magic thing that clings and doesn't, like Councilor Somerville said, melt to your windshield. And maybe we'll ultimately decide paper's the best way to go if we do this. But anyway, I just want to assure you, like, all of those kinds of things are considered, and those decisions made every day in my office in hundreds of ways, and this is totally in line with that. And your future city manager should do a good job for you. Trust me, but trust my successors. They're going to be awesome, too. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. All right. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Somerville.
No.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
No.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses and 2 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That has been approved on first reading. We will move to item 16. Councilor Pierce.
I move to approve original ordinance number 2059 on introduction and first reading, adding Laramie Municipal Code, Section 2.54, creating the Ranch Advisory Commission.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Newman, because he didn't get it the first time. City Manager.
Council, this is an attempt to really just make permanent our Ranch Advisory Commission. Let me get to my correct page here. So the Ranch Advisory Commission was originally created through resolution as an ad hoc or temporary committee of the city, and that was back in 2008. So as we realized that our committee, which is permanent, is actually enabled through your council action as a temporary committee, it made sense to make it permanent. And the way to do that is to do that through municipal code and the adoption of an ordinance. As I said, the committee was originally formed in 2008, and I think it's clear that the need for this body is continues to persist, and that it has been a good body to include within our overall structure of boards and commissions, where we engage residents to help advise us on how to conduct our city business. With the newly acquired Bath Ranch property, which we acquired just this year, July 1st, it is even more important, I think, to make this committee permanent and to make sure that the ordinance does allow for their reach to include not just the Monolith Ranch, because we have anecdotally referred to them as the Monolith Ranch Committee, but to make sure they are just the ranch committee so that any agricultural properties, current and future, fall under their auspices. So a couple things I want to mention to you. So I think this is a pretty benign approach, but we will need 3 readings in order to make it permanent. There's a couple things I want to bring to your attention. As we prepared this ordinance, we thought about the long history of the ranch committee, the ways they've been effective, the ways that it's been less effective in conducting the business. It is the recommendation of myself and also Darren Parkin, who's been their primary staff liaison for years, that we think about maybe downsizing them. A 7-member body is pretty large and unwieldy, and because they are so sort of specialized in their form and function, we thought if we had, the right 3, 4, 5 people, that may be an easier way for this board to continue to persist in a permanent status. So I've made a couple suggestions for you here. They're not in the ordinance, but if you think you would like to think about the membership being pared down, I've offered a couple suggestions that you could bring maybe on second reading. One would have 3 residents at-large voting members for staggered terms with 1 city council liaison non-voting. That's up to you. As you know, some of our boards and commissions have voting city council members on them. Others have city council liaisons who are non-voting. And then another alternative, if you didn't want to have a 4-member board and you wanted a 5-member board, is you could have 4 residents at large voting staggered terms and 1 city council member voting. The thing to keep in mind as you think about that, if you would like to direct staff to prepare an amendment to pare it down, we want to make sure we have odd numbers of voting members, right? So we don't have everything fail on a tie potentially. Anyway, if you would like to consider that, I'd recommend we think about it and bring it on second reading. And then also the bylaws have been drafted to accompany this ordinance. I didn't include them here because our process is typically we do first reading, we do second reading, and then the bylaws will come and be adopted along with the third reading of the ordinance that makes the board effective, and thereby we vote to make their bylaws effective as well. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, City Manager. Council, any questions? Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thanks. Having been the liaison for this committee on and off for a number of years, I do really appreciate the idea of paring down the membership. I think, it doesn't meet monthly. It meets, quarterly? And sometimes attendance, for the 7 folks is a little difficult. So I like the idea of fewer members. I'm personally in favor of keeping the city council person as a voting member, but would certainly be fine if that were different. But that's just my personal preference. One thing in terms of potentially to be found in the bylaws, which we have presentations and we have membership from, and help me out, but like Wyoming Fish and Game has a membership spot. I don't know what your intentions are of that, of having professional folks as other potential members of that committee, but I'm not sure if it's important to have them as members or to just make the meetings known and invitations sent based on the agenda, right? I haven't really given that much thought, but it sure is important to have their view and their input depending on the subject that's being discussed, right? Be it, like I said, Fish and Game or, the other entities that we work with, even hearing from, and I suspect we will at some point hear from the historical group and the path going, can't even think now.
Overland Trail.
Right. But I mean, we will have, and we need professional organization input, right? So if that can be somewhere in there, maybe not as actual members or voting members, but certainly as guess. I don't know. But anyway, that's just kind of my thought to kind of throw it out there for consideration.
Thank you, Councilor. Council, any other questions, or City Manager, did you have a response to that at all?
I could just mention that as far as welcoming presentations from other like important key agency partners or educators, the purpose and scope of responsibilities, item 2, does say the role and responsibility of the commission is to advise and issue periodic reports to council regarding, and item 2 is information gathered from advocacy groups, experts, and the public relating to ranch operations and public use. So that's definitely contemplated, that's been valuable in the past to have those people be able to come and present. And that would continue in the future. And then I was trying to look here because I can't remember in the original resolution, and you'd think I would because I think I wrote it, but I know that we have evolved a practice over time, Councilor Pierce, of like saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if someone from Game and Fish that lives locally in the city and is a resident would serve on this board, right? But I'm looking at the resolution now for the temporary committee, and that was not in there. I think that's a practice that's evolved. We didn't have a reserved seat for like a Game and Fish person or a Laramie Rivers Conservation District person. And so as the ordinance is written currently, we don't have that. It just says residents who live in the city of Laramie, basically.
And maybe we've just lucked out.
Yeah.
And they applied to be on the committee. I mean, because I remember Mr. Sherwood was a member when I was on the committee a number of years ago. Now we have Bill Bruniker, who's on the committee, and he's Fish and Game. So maybe they've just been interested, or maybe, I don't really recall how that's worked out over the years, but.
Mayor, through you, Councilor Pierce, I think the council just had the wisdom to choose those applicants, right?
Maybe so. Right.
Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question was in regards to making sure that this permanent committee, while they have a really large charge for generally managing and advising on the ranch, I shouldn't say managing, advising on the ranch, one of the pieces with the Bath Ranch purchase was recreation. And so my thought is, how do we dedicate a position on this board to come from the outdoor rec world so that we don't lose sight of developing those opportunities and they're constantly part of the discussions. And I was looking at that first one, so the second one, the 4 residents and 1 city council voting member of, we could designate 3 at-large residents and 1 outdoor rec, but the conversation about having the Game and Fish rep, that's really important, and maybe we need to specify that a little bit more with the committee membership, but that just seems like a piece I think we need to emphasize and not lose with the commission or the committee right up front.
Okay. Councilor Doherty, and then Councilor Pierce, is yours on that topic? Or is yours as well, Councilor Doherty? We'll go to you and then Councilor Doherty. Thank you, Councilor.
It's really difficult to get attendance from some of those folks because they are extremely busy professionals, right? So if making that designation is tough, I would think. But the interest is always so strong, and having them show up as experts in that particular field, I think also works. I mean, I just know it's tough for like I said, I mean, having been on that committee for a while, it's tough for these folks to make these meetings given their, day job, right? They have a day job. So it's just like all of us, it's kind of tough sometimes to make a meeting.
Exactly.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doherty?
I'd be opposed boxing us in like that because I think the council, when we're interviewing people for various boards, we look to have some variety, and I think that we do that anyway, like with planning and with traffic commission. And it's like, so this is somebody that has this kind of expertise. We don't have that on the board, or this, so I think you can count on council members helping guide that with the recreation. So I wouldn't want to have it box us in the ordinance, because I know like for the travel or the tourism, it's been hard, or for EAC to find somebody that fits they have this, and they live outside the city limits, and, and they wear, blue eyeshadow or something like that, like just having so many different compartments just makes it harder to fill those positions sometimes, and I'd like to keep it as flexible. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Richardson?
I don't know if it's possible to add something, just some sort of phrase that says with preference toward someone in the outdoor, so that as we're choosing those people, we keep that in mind. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, then we put that effort forth.
Thank you. Councilor Somerville.
Mayor, maybe an alternative proposal is to modify the actual ordinance. And under 2.54.030, purpose and responsibilities - generally, there are 4 general provisions that the group is supposed to advise and issue reports on. We could just make number 5 outdoor recreation development on the Bath and the Monolith Ranch parcels. And that, then that doesn't box in the committee member, but it says, permanent committee, this is really important and we need you to work on this. I think that would accomplish that as well.
Thank you, Councilor. And I have one question about that. Do we have any intention, I guess the Monolith Ranch would have fishing recreation. So that would count. Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, the
go forth, sure.
Bird watching.
I wanted to be sure we weren't assigning something that would not be pertinent to both ranches, but yeah, that could work. Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, and I've said this before, Council. I think we all love the idea of recreation on both these pieces of property, right? But to get there, to get the ranches prepared for this type of activity is going to take a long, long time. So, because we have many other things that have to get done first. And when I say long, I mean, I think if we get there by 7 years, 5, 10 years, that's reasonable, so adding it's fine, but expecting a report next week, no. It's not going to happen. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions before we go to the public? Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak on this item? Go ahead and raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or come forward if you are an invisible person in the room. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Council, back to us for any comments. Councilor Shumway.
I don't like the idea of 3 because it's too easily manipulated, and I like 5 with a liaison from the city council, because I want to have them speak freely without thinking they have to persuade a council member in the committee meeting and then bring it to us for consideration. But so no liaison, 5 rather than 3.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Newman.
Ditto, because that's what I was going to say. If we're picking the people on the board, we should put trust in them as well. So,
thank you, Councilor. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to clarify, Councilor Schuster, are you saying 5 members voting and a liaison attending?
That would be my preference.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other comments, Council?
I just want to say I appreciate your comment on power dynamics, and that if the other members feel that they have to convince the member and then again go before council to convince. Okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments, Council? Okay. Seeing none, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has passed first reading. We'll move on to item 17, which is public comments. Any members of the public wish to speak to the City Council? Raise your hands on Zoom. If you do, we'll let you in the room. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close that public comment period. Council, any consideration for future work session topics? Anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? Okay. Councilor Pierce, item 19.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second by Shumway. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, council, we are adjourned.